Hey everybody, it's me Nando. I got Mortimer on my lap and we are here to talk about a casting news thing. And this is the fun kind of casting news where we know the actor, we don't know the character. We have rumors of the character, we know what movie they're going to be in. So I am going to give you some options for who it might be, and we'll talk about like what we've heard it might be, other characters that might fit into that story, and then maybe some long shots, who knows. Also, my hair is a little weird today because I'm recording this later at night, so be nice in the comments. Anyway, so the actor in question, I'm sure many of you have already seen this, Sadie Sink, it has been reported, is going to be in Spider-Man 4, or whatever we're calling it, MCU Spider-Man 4, as a character. Now, we don't know anything about MCU Spider-Man 4, partially because they're keeping it very secret, and also partially because every time some leak comes out, it's immediately contradicted by another leak. And sometimes I think when studios do this, it's like, oh, they're trying to throw you off the scent. But with this Spider-Man movie, it really does seem like they're just a lot of different parties saying, we should make it a multiverse movie, we should make it a street level movie, and we should have this character and that character. So I don't know what this movie is besides a movie that involves Spider-Man and seems to take place somewhere between Doomsday and Secret Wars, like the two big Avengers movies. But that could change if they don't get any of this other stuff done. Like, they have to film it, and they're filming the Doomsday and Secret Wars movies, I think, back to back now. So, you know, it probably helped to start filming that Spider-Man movie. Anyway, obviously we're going to see the return of Tom Holland, probably, you know, in some capacity a little bit as Zendaya, although it does seem like we're going to back off of a lot of those characters because at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, Peter Parker, you know, does his memory spell, and then he is forgotten by all these people. They go off to college and he lives this new life, sort of a reset for the character. Anyway, Sadie Sink, an actor many people know, probably from one of three roles. Most likely you've seen her playing Max on Stranger Things. She showed up in season 2. She's become a main fixture of this team. She's going to be in the final season. I'm imagining they're like working on that now. I think that's supposed to come out this year. She was also in The Whale, a movie I don't really want to watch. And then she was in Fear Street 2, the one that takes place at the summer camp. You know, she's relatively young, you know, in her 20s, has had a lot of experience, but I wouldn't say like most people have not had too much exposure to her outside of Stranger Things, which is fine. She was previously rumored to be playing, or at least in the running for, the role of Jean Grey in the big MCU X-Men thing. It is unclear whether that is true, whether that was ever true, and that could still be who she is, right? I think we get in some trouble here, especially with the actors like Sadie Sink, who are known for playing one iconic role, for just casting characters that look like they did in that role everybody knows them from. Like when this Sadie Sink role popped up, someone named Smash and Zap on Twitter said, Nando is about to list every Marvel redhead in his next video. I don't really tweet much, but I do check it on Twitter every so often. And Smash and Zap, you're correct. I am going to list some Marvel redheads. And from what I can tell, she is a redhead. So, you know, that, I guess, you know what, the thing with redheads is like sometimes it's hard to fake that if you don't have like the complexion for it, and she does. So there's that. But that means we're looking at Sadie Sink potentially be playing any Marvel character that's around the same age as Spider-Man. I imagine, you know, she's a little bit younger than Tom Holland, but is probably going to be playing a character around the same age who is white with either red hair or blonde hair or something, who could presumably know Spider-Man and has not been introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe yet, unless you count multiverse stuff, which is totally in play, although let's, for the sake of argument, say that's not what we're doing here. So I want to talk about a few characters that have been making the rounds, that have been very popular, and we'll go over all of them. Number 1, Jean Grey. I don't love it. I said this in my video about casting Jean Grey. She felt young for Jean Grey if Harris Dickinson was the age range they were looking for Cyclops. Now, I know what you're thinking. Harris Dickinson, I don't think, is that much different age-wise from Tom Holland. They're actually probably around the same age. So why does Sadie Sink maybe work as a love interest for Tom Holland but not Harris Dickinson? It's because for me, just me, Harris Dickinson feels more like an adult. Tom Holland feels more like a young adult, and Sadie Sink also feels like a young adult. In case anybody's wondering, Sadie Sink, 22 years old, Tom Holland, 28 years old, Harris Dickinson, 29 years old. So this is what I'm saying here. Because of how I think these movies have framed Tom Holland, and just because of how Tom Holland characters tend to feel, right? Even in like Uncharted, where he's supposed to be playing cool tough guy Nathan Drake, he still kind of feels like the kid version of him. And no shade on Tom Holland. I think Tom Holland is an incredibly talented performer. And I'm just talking about acting. I'm not talking about the time he did that Rihanna dance. So I do want to talk about one really small thing, because a bunch of these characters we're going to be talking about are X-Men or mutants or whatever. And this is only because Marvel is definitely focusing on X-Men, right? That's who we're casting this week. That's who we're seeing lots and lots of rumors about. Apparently, according to someone, and I don't know if this is true, but according to like Jeff Snyder or something online, if Marvel puts an X-Man in this Spider-Man movie, Laura Shula Donner, who I believe has some sort of rights over production of the X-Men movies, gets to be a producer of this Spider-Man movie as well. And it seems like either Marvel or Sony don't want to do that. I don't know why, or not like, I don't care. I care, but I'm not going to figure that into this too much because A, I think if they really want to, they can figure something out, and B, this could be wrong. But this is something I've heard people say, and a lot of this, stuff does make a difference in the long term, so we'll see. But okay, so Jean Grey. I don't think she's a bad choice for Jean Grey. I think Sadie Sink could play Jean Grey. I just don't think she's my favorite Jean Grey. But let's move on from her to some Spider-Man characters. And also, the scooper who said that Sadie Sink was going to be playing Jean Grey is now saying she's playing a different character. So if you just believe that someone said, well, she probably is going to be playing Jean Grey, that person is saying not. It's a different character now. And the thing with these scoopers all the time is like, I just don't know what information they're going on, right? They don't say, like, I saw a picture of concept art of her with red hair standing next to Spider-Man in a superhero costume. And I went, oh, that must be Jean Grey, or if someone said, like, she is playing Jean Grey. Both of those things are avenues that they could use to glean this information, but obviously one of those ways could end up with a lot of miscommunications or people who maybe aren't as familiar with all the characters making some assumptions that could be wrong. But the person that reported on Jean Grey originally now says that Sadie Sink is playing Mary Jane Watson. Now this, kind of makes sense. Redhead, youngish, like, in her 20s. Technically does not exist in the universe yet. We had MJ, played by Zendaya. Could we, and what is the point of, is really my question, doing MJ again? Because Mary Jane has, like, a very different personality, I would say, than MJ usually does when they're written in the comics. And obviously, Mary Jane's a character that's been around for so long. She's had a lot of different personalities. And she's been written a lot of different ways. But I do think that, like, Mary Jane is a very specific type of superhero, partner that is, somewhat supportive of the superhero, is frequently getting kidnapped and stuff, but is not always like a damsel in distress. She tends to have more agency. She's more confident than Peter. There's like, face a tiger, you just hit the jackpot. That's a Mary Jane line. That's something she would say that I feel like, I don't know, maybe Jean Grey would say that, but that doesn't feel like something you'd expect her to say. I think it would be crazy. And saying this now, clip this will come up in, a couple weeks when this is announced. I think it'd be crazy to be like, we're not doing MJ anymore. Spider-Man made a solemn vow and he did a big spell and he's just not gonna do that anymore. And then in through the door walks someone named Mary Jane, and Spider-Man's like, whoa, well, okay, thank you, universe. I'll just have a new girlfriend, similar girlfriend. Like, I feel like you gotta do something a little different. And I don't think you have to do that much work on it either. Just have it be any of the other Spider-Man love interests that are not Mary Jane, would kind of act like Mary Jane or can be written like Mary Jane. For instance, Felicia Hardy. Now, obviously, Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat. People want Felicia Hardy in these movies. There have been a lot of actors that people suggested. I'd say Sydney Sweeney comes up a lot because of boobs. Anya Taylor-Joy also comes up a lot, but we can't have her be Black Cat because, of course, she has to be magic. That should be some sort of law. But, like, what if they do Black Cat, Felicia Hardy? And this is a character who has a very, not even strange, just doesn't come up that much, luck-based power, but is more or less Spider-Man's Catwoman in the sense that she does crimes, and Spider-Man's like, don't do crimes, and she's like, oh, Spider-Man, you little guy. And then she tricks him into being in the vault, and then he finds her later, takes the thing she stole, and is like, told you not to do crimes. But then on the other side of it, she is also this love interest in costume for Spider-Man, who, like, understands Spider-Man in a way that Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy or none of those ever, well, Gwen Stacy, I guess, is a different story, and MJ is now jackpot because of Paul. But at least originally, Black Cat was like a girlfriend for Spider-Man who, flirted with Spider-Man and understood the superhero lifestyle in a very special way. I do think Black Cat is one of the higher profile Spider-Man characters. It just has not been in one of these movies yet, if you don't count Felicity Jones very briefly in Amazing Spider-Man 2. But, like, I don't think it would be crazy to put Felicia Hardy in one of these movies. I don't think that's what we're getting here. But like, if we're going to introduce one of the canon Spider-Man love interests, we can't do Liz Allen because we already did her in those movies. Although having Sadie Sink play Mary Jane Watson feels like having Sadie Sink play Elizabeth Allington or something. And it's like, this is Liz Allen. Treat her about the same way you would treat the other one, but she looks different and is technically a different person, so it does not break the spell. And then we have the other Spider-Girlfriend that has not made it into this universe yet, Gwen Stacy. Now, let's say Peter's going to college in this movie, and this is a big, like, assumption because maybe he's going to be on Spider Island or Venom Planet or something. Like, they could do anything with this movie, but let's say it's a somewhat grounded movie set in New York. Peter is in college trying to create a new life, and, you know, superhero stuff starts getting in the way. Maybe at this college, he meets Gwen Stacy. She's a character, obviously, it's very important in Spider-Man mythos. She traditionally dies at the hands of the Green Goblin. Spider-Man holds the body and goes, no! And then she stays dead for a very long time until multiverse stuff, and then Spider-Gwen shows up and now has become a humongous character in the comics. So, you know, Gwen Stacy technically is still dead, although she apparently is coming back as like Wolverine or something, which we're not going to talk about. And Gwenpool's a different thing, also not worth explaining. Oh, if she was Gwenpool, that would be kind of fun. That'd be very stupid though. Like, not stupid. I actually like that. That would be weird. But like, out of the three canon Spider-Girlfriends, right? The three main ones, Mary Jane, Felicia Hardy, Gwen Stacy. I actually think Gwen Stacy makes the most sense based on where Peter Parker is right now. And if they do Gwen Stacy, I kind of hope they don't kill her. I hope we just keep her around for a while. And instead of doing just like the same thing again and again and again, if we learned anything from Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, it's like these canon events are kind of overrated. And if you're part of the spider fascists, I guess you can say like, all these people have to die in this order, but it feels more interesting to say, like, but what if they don't? You know, what happens then? Who is the Spider-Man who has like this, you know, love interest who he never has to see murdered by Willem Dafoe or Coleman Domingo? Other spider characters that could show up here that I think might be kind of interesting. Janice Lincoln. Now, Janice Lincoln is traditionally the Beetle. However, she's usually the daughter of Tombstone. I suggested in my Spider-Man 4 pitch that you put in the Beetle and have her be like the kind of Black Cat of these movies. But if they do that, it would be crazy if they cast Sadie Sink for that role, considering Tombstone is, you know, he has albinism, but he's like a black man. Crazier things have happened, I guess. There was that movie from the, you know, 90s. That was a TV movie where they did White Jubilee, but I don't think that's what we're going to do here. Other characters that could show up, Hallows Eve, I saw suggested somewhere. She is a very recent character who is supposed to kind of be the clone girlfriend for Spider-Man's clone. So she was like the same way that Havoc, Scott's brother, ends up getting with Madeline Pryor, and they form like a very, very strange couple that almost kind of works, and I like. They did this with this other new character who had a backstory where she was abused. I can't remember exactly what it was, but then she wanted to get revenge, and now she has superpowers where she puts masks on. I doubt they're going to do Hallows Eve, because what's the point of doing Hallows Eve without the clones? They could do the clones, though. That would be so weird. I almost kind of want them to do it. Anyway, other Spider characters it could be. You know, honestly, Spider-Man does not have a ton of villains for women. One that I personally really like, and I know a lot of people hate, but I think because of that, someone could play a really fun love to hate version of this character is Screwball, the influencer meme live streamer villain who wants to do crimes on TikTok or Instagram Live or whatever it ends up being in this, like Osborne Graham, and becomes this big like problem that Spider-Man has to deal with, but you know, just doesn't. Yeah, it's kind of like a Looney Tunes character, honestly. He doesn't really care about all the destruction she's causing. I think it'd be weird to put that character in here, but that's a character who I would be like, okay, we'll see what that is. Like, I would be kind of interested in that. Another character this could be, I don't think I'd love Sadie Sink for this role, Jessica Drew or one of the other Spider-Women. So I think because of Madam Web, there's a very low likelihood we get Cassandra Webb in this movie, Julia Carpenter, which is the same because I think Sadie Sink could probably play Julia Carpenter pretty well, and then Anya Corazon and Maddie Franklin. I don't think we get any of them in there. But there is the first Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew. Now, besides not having red hair or blonde hair, she has black hair, She is also traditionally not that connected to Spider-Man. She's more connected to characters like the High Evolutionary and Hydra. She starts her life as a Hydra agent. That being said, like, I don't know, maybe working a Spider-Woman into this universe isn't crazy. And if you're going to do that with someone, you probably want to just use Jessica Drew. Other Spider characters I didn't even know existed. Like, obviously there's Mayday Parker, and there's the idea of a Spider Child. You could have her show up from an alternate universe. Maybe she's not a love interest, but maybe she's like, I'm your daughter, Mayday Parker, and I'm also Spider-Man, and let's go beat up, Multiverse Electro or whatever. And then the other option, which I didn't even know existed until the other day, is apparently Spider-Man has a secret sister. This is something that is quite recent, and she kind of looks like Sadie Sink. Like, I don't think it's that far off. Not the same way that, like, Nick Fury Jr. looks like Sam Jackson, where they were like, we were making a movie we should probably do. This seems just more like she's a redhead who kind of looks like Spider-Man, but I think that would be an insane choice. Please do not do that. If I get one veto, it's that one. Not Screwball. I love Screwball. And not White Janice Lincoln. I guess we can also put the veto down there. But I will also say, like, bringing a secret sister out of the woodwork, and anything with the parents and stuff, just don't bother. But okay, so those are your Spider-Man characters. However, there's plenty of other characters that could show up here. Other characters, specifically mutants. Now, Laura Schul Donner, producer credit notwithstanding, it does seem like something they want to do. Like, it seems like something that, with characters like Wolverine and Laura and now Gambit, we're seeing a lot of mutants show up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or at least close enough in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to, like, fall in and then get stuck there. Now, beyond that, we have other mutants that exist in the MCU. Kamala Khan, Namor, the bear guy from Black Widow, who never turns into a bear, but, like, technically I guess is a mutant. But we haven't had any actual X-Men yet. I mean, we haven't had the introduction of a new character for the MCU that is just from the X-Men. We're going to get that eventually. Let's say this isn't Jean Grey. Like, let's say she doesn't meet Jean Grey at college or something. What mutants can this be? First of all, because Jean Grey is a redhead, there's a lot of redheaded mutants, because she's related to so many of them. Rachel Grey is a good example. Hope Summers is another one. I don't think either of them would work here. Rachel Grey, because, I mean, you could do Rachel Grey, because she is kind of from an alternate universe. You don't need to explain, like, oh my goodness, someone was very upset about me mentioning White Jubilee in that Generation X show. That is insane. Don't watch. I mean, watch it. It's kind of weird, but what a choice. Anyway, so Rachel Grey. I doubt it's Rachel Grey. But that is a character who you could introduce without any of the other X-Men showing up. She could just come out of a portal, be like, hi, my name is Rachel Grey. I'm from the future. Or like a different, timeline or whatever. Do you guys have X-Men yet? No? All right, well, I'll work with you because I do know kind of what Spider-Man's deal is. That being said, weird choice. Wouldn't make sense. Hope Summers, you would need the rest of them for this to be even kind of interesting. So I don't think that would work either. And let's say other characters she could be before we get to the one that I actually like. I don't know, maybe Mystique, maybe Rogue. Those are other women that could be around that age. I made a whole video about how I don't think Hunter Schafer is the right age for Mystique. I think that goes double for Sadie. And I talked about how I think that Margaret Qualley, who is apparently one of the potential rogues, is a great rogue. There's other rogues that I like out there. I don't really think that's the role that Sadie Sink would take either. There are other just like people around that could be in their lives. I will say I saw the comic book movie. They did a list of some of these characters, most of which are characters that I had like thought of. I mean, Hallows Eve this is where I got Hallows Eve from, and this is a character that is not on a lot of people's radars. The other one that I had never thought of before is a character named Carly Cooper. She's a love interest, works in a medical examiner's office, and is involved with Spider-Man. This is the kind of thing that I could actually see it being, which would be sort of a bummer, because it's like, oh, is she going to be Jean Grey? Is she going to be Mary Jane? No, she's going to be this other character who doesn't have superpowers and is only in one movie. I'm just going to look up my action figures real quick, see if there's anybody else that could be fun. Listen, I had never seen Sadie Sink do an accent, like a Russian accent. I don't think she'd be like a great magic, but I just, maybe that. But yeah, really not a ton of other options that I love. But then there's the one that I actually do love, and the one that I think it should be. Marvel, it is clear and has been very clear for a while. This movie is in various states of flux. So if there is still some flux, if you can manage to get a little bit of flux in there, I think Firestar is the right answer to this question. It's not necessarily what I think we will get, but it is, I think, a character that checks all the boxes. Looks like Sadie Sink, around the age that Sadie Sink is what you would want Firestar to be. Has an interesting connection to Spider-Man, has an interesting connection to the X-Men, and is a character that is not too much of either to be in a movie that's trying to connect to both, right? The same way that like Jean Grey technically has connections to Spider-Man, but she's much more of an X-Men character that would kind of feel weird to introduce her in a Spider-Man movie. On the other side, let's say Black Cat, some connections to the X-Men, but if you were trying to introduce X-Men characters in the MCU quickly, Black Cat obviously does not fit that bill either. Firestar fits both sides, and it's honestly pretty genius. So the basic story behind Firestar, and this is the Marvel redhead that I think makes sense for the people on Twitter. She is a mutant, has the power to emit microwave radiation. So she can microwave things, which means they get really hot, melt, burn, kind of like the microwave emitter from the Batman movie that should have exploded everybody's organs near the microwave emitter. What was it called? The Batman Begins? Yeah, Batman Begins. Okay, so Firestar debuts in the comics 1985. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, a cartoon, debuts in 1981. That is where this character is from, but she also has played a much larger role in the comics since then. Her origin story was, and she has such a rough origin story. And it's funny because like up until, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 years ago, she's never really been an X-Man. She's been a character that is a mutant, that is never fit into the X-Men the way that a lot of the rest of these guys do. And every time she gets close, something goes really wrong. And a lot of the times it's on purpose. And she's not necessarily like a punching bag, but she's just feel kind of unlucky. So she gets mutant powers, microwaves, melts things. Angelica's like family member dies, not because of her, but I think that, I can't remember exactly what it is, but something makes Emma Frost go like, you should come to my school and we're doing the Massachusetts Academy and we'll raise all your X-Men and it'll be great. Not X-Men, but mutants. And she's got her Hellions, all those characters are there at this point, I believe. And Firestar joins the Massachusetts Academy. Now, Emma Frost is going to manipulate Firestar a lot in ways that are kind of insane. And listen, Emma Frost is a fun character, and part of the fun is just that she was the worst for a while, and this character does kind of have to deal with that. Although, after Genosha, she kind of got a reset. Everything was put in perspective. But for instance, for Angelica, she loved to ride horses. And at one point she, I think, was kissing a boy she wasn't supposed to kiss. And then the horse stable caught fire and her horse made it out, but then died, just dropped dead. And Angelica blames herself for that when in reality, Emma Frost did that. And I remember when I read this, I was like, oh, it's like she's made her hallucinate thinking the horse died. It's like, no, Emma Frost used telepathy to kill this horse. So like, that's kind of part of the bad luck of her. She's had like moments where she almost joins the X-Men, doesn't. She joined as a teacher during the Jean Grey school era in the mid 2010s, I think. The most interesting thing she did recently, besides join the West Coast Avengers, which is kind of fun, is Angelica, when the X-Men all got, beaten by all the robots in the very recent Fall of Krakoa arc, Angelica was selected secretly by Professor X, I think, or one of the Krakoan leaders, to pretend to be a mole, betray the X-Men, so that she can get on the inside of Orchis and then save everybody. But to do this, Angelica had to appear to be a mole, and everybody had to believe she was. So for a while, she was like mutant Judas and lived a really crappy life and like had this spot that nobody wanted. And part of why it made sense for Angelica as opposed to say like for Kurt to do this is because like other mutants and other people would buy the Angelica being a traitor. She's not that connected to the X-Men. She always kind of feels like an outsider. And so it'd be like, oh, and then she wanted to sell him out. That actually makes sense. Like, this character is technically an X-Men. She was like on one of the official versions of the Krakoan X-Men, but she never felt like she fit in. I think a part of it comes from the fact that she has fire powers and red hair, and so does Jean Grey sometimes. And if you want to stand out on a team like the X-Men, it helps to not have the same power as the most popular woman on the team. Firestar was a member of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, this cartoon show that was Spider-Man, Iceman, and Firestar. And the three of them had adventures together. I'd never watched this show, but I know it exists. I know it's kind of, a little hokey. I'll probably watch an episode or two now, but I imagine she was written pretty similarly to how she was written in the comics in the 80s. And if that's the case, like having a Spider-Man movie where Spider-Man goes to college, and on the first day of college, a big robot attacks the college, and Spider-Man shows up to fight the robot. And then two other people who are also at the college, who are not superheroes, but have superpowers, also go to fight the robot. And it's a man made of ice, and this fire woman names herself Firestar. And they're all just like, oh, we all kind of do this. I actually don't have any friends that do this because they all forgot I existed. And you guys also seem like you're on your own. So let's all just be buddies and let's make like a little group. And, you know, when they invent the X-Men, Angelica can go on the X-Men, or she can stay in the Spider-Man side of things. And it can be this weird thing where everyone's like, why doesn't she join the X-Men? And it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like she fits in. But maybe that would be beneficial, because then you would have Iceman join the X-Men. And this could be how you would introduce Iceman into the MCU. Have him be the other amazing friend in this Spider-Man 4 movie, and have him go join the X-Men. Have her not do that for some reason. Maybe have her join the Massachusetts Academy and work with Emma Frost and have her horse get killed by telepathy. I don't know, but the way that this rumor came out, people were saying she's probably either Jean Grey or Mary Jane, which means they probably found that this person was a redhead, which makes sense because that's Sadie Sink's hair color as well. And then they're like, well, actually, we were wrong about the Jean Grey thing. We actually think it's Mary Jane now. I'm like, why were you wrong about the Jean Grey thing? Did you at some point see like a drawing of a mutant on fire flying around and you were like, oh, Jean Grey? And then someone said it's not Jean Grey, because that's what a drawing of Firestar would look like. Or just like a character description of another student who has a hot temper and a fiery personality and a mutant secret that's hidden. Like, of course, anybody that reads that doesn't know about Firestar would just go, oh, that's Jean Grey. But in reality, maybe that's who this is. Maybe it's Angelica. And yeah, I don't think this is the most important Marvel character that you could possibly introduce, but I do think this is a character who, like, they're pushing a lot in the books. Again, she's in the West Coast Avengers run. She's had a really big role in the Fall of Krakoa storyline, and she is an interesting character because she bridges mutant stuff and Avengers-y stuff, or just other stuff. Like, a lot of these characters, say, like, you know, your Nightcrawlers or your Gambits, they tend to stay in the X-Men mutant side of things. They don't really go out and tell their stories too often. Firestar does. So putting a character like that into this movie would make so much sense. Listen, it's probably going to be Mary Jane, because that's what this guy said. And, you know, eventually those people are right. And I think that's the craziest answer, but I get, you know, sometimes that's the one that ends up being true. However, if I get to pick just me, Firestar, 100%. And speaking of stars, you know whose logo is a star? Nebula. It is a subscription streaming service that I helped to create with a bunch of my other YouTube friends. People you definitely know if you like my channel, like Patrick Willems, Captain Midnight, Big Joel, H Bomber Guy, Princess Weeks, and a bunch of others. Go to the culture tab and just poke around. You will find someone you already love. And for my Nando V movies and Nando Cut videos, the entire Nando cinematic universe, they all go up early on Nebula. The Nando V movies videos are usually a week early. The Nando Cut videos are usually closer to a day or so. But when it comes to a movie review, that can mean the difference between me recommending you immediately see a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine, or me warning you that you immediately see a movie like Madam Web. Either way, see Madam Web. Madam Web's great. Also, if you've seen these ads in the past, you've definitely seen me talk about Abolish Everything, a new show that was coming to Nebula. Well, they recorded it, and it came to Nebula, and it's great. It is so funny. I had such a good time watching it. Check out the trailer online, and then definitely go watch an episode. I don't know if you guys are like me, but this is the kind of thing I could watch full seasons of. You can also download videos to the Nebula app and watch them wherever you want. And we're adding new creators every day. We have guest passes. It's really incredible. And speaking of incredible, Nebula is already a steal at $60 a year, $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get a year of Nebula for $36. That is $3 a month. It's an incredible deal. Again, go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut. You're going to love it. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you next time.